Hello and welcome to La Rosa Reads. I'm Denise La Rosa and today I'm sharing all of my February reads with all of you. Let's talk books. Yay! My second month of 2024 was a great reading month indeed, and I'm excited to share all of those reads with you right now. I listened to the audiobook for The Road Less Traveled, a classic that I was inspired to listen to after reading Bell Hook's book, All About Love. This classic self-help book by M. Scott Peck is one that I found to be timeless in many ways, but yet some of the things he said, and more importantly, the way in which he said it, was very much of the time it was written. But nonetheless, I have to tell you guys, this is a must read for anyone who is looking to continuously be on the journey of improving themselves, learning more about the ways in which they navigate the world and why they navigate the world in the way that they do. And so for that, I am all about this book. So many books that are out now that are in the self-help genre, a lot of famous psychologists, therapists, they reference this book. So I also feel that if you are reading a book that references The Road Less Traveled, you should definitely check it out. It is well worth it, and it gives you more context for those people that you may follow who have looked to M. Scott Peck to inform the ways that they give advice as well. So many of the ideas that were shared in this book were viewed as being revolutionary at the time, but now serve as the foundation for a lot of health and wellness conversations. So I enjoyed listening to The Road Less Traveled. And I continued my audiobook journey by listening to The Color of Water by one of my all-time favorite authors, James McBride. This is the man who's responsible for arguably one of my favorite books of all time, definitely in my top 5, Deacon King Kong. And so after reading Deacon King Kong and The Heaven and Earth grocery store, I realized that I need to learn more about the man, the myth, the legend known as James McBride. He had written a memoir that really centers his mother and his relationship with his mother. And my dear friend Amanda, who had visited La Rosa Reads like a couple of years ago, kept telling me, girl, you need to not necessarily read this, you need to listen to the audiobook. She said it's one of her all-time favorite reads, and it has become mine as well. I described in my reading journal, this reading experience as a poignant, refreshing, and awe-inspiring life. Speaking of James McBride's mother's life, that elicits emotions and introspection from the reader. James McBride is a biracial man. He was raised by his mother, who is white and Jewish. His father died when he, being James McBride, was about 8 years old. James McBride is one of 12 children, and his mother never told him that she's white. She never told him she was black. She just moved about life and immersed herself in black neighborhoods and really just immersed herself in raising her 12 children and was all about being a good human being and just looked beyond color. And I'm not trying to talk about being colorblind, but it's so much more intricate, more nuanced than that. And it gave me, hearing the way she navigated race, just gave me a new perspective. That's an important one, and one that had me reflecting on my own views of race and ethnicity and how we respond to people according to that. So you got to have this experience for yourself. I just want to impress upon you to please get this book. The audiobook is fantastic. You've got the way it's set up. James McBride is talking and giving his own memoir, his own perspective of what's going on. And then you have, and he doesn't narrate it, but a man does the narration for James McBride's part. And then his mother's voice is narrated by a woman. And so it's just really neat to see the juxtaposition of these two people. It is a stellar reading or listening experience. I highly recommend that you check out The Color of Water. Moving along, I read another nonfiction book titled 60 Songs That Explain the 90s. Apparently, this is a podcast. I don't listen to podcasts much anymore. There was a time where that's all I did was consume podcasts, but I'm not about that life. However, this book really intrigued me by the title. I'm a 90s person, grew up being a preteen teenager in the 90s, and so I am also a music lover. I thought this book would be the perfect book for me, and it was a disappointment. First of all, the author, Rob Harvilla, lied to us. And I shouldn't say he lied to us because there was a little tiny caption on the cover that said, actually, I'm going to be talking about more than 60 songs. So can you imagine this book that was, how many pages? Not even 300 pages, talking about so many songs. He couldn't dive deep. He could not do a deep dive. And therefore, it was a disappointment. I just felt like, bless his soul, bless his heart, this man was all over the place. And my attention span is not the greatest, so I empathize with that. And usually because I kind of am like that as well, I can follow an author who jumps around. This was too much. This man was doing way too much and therefore did very little to make this reader a happy reader. I did, however, enjoy this quote about Max Martin, who is responsible. He's the producer that's responsible for those mid to late 90s pop songs from Britney Spears, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, on and on. And so this quote states, "The resulting blockbuster songs are less songs than equations, albeit luxurious equations that entail one pop star or another purring sex-adjacent nonsense directly into your ears." That is a perfect way to describe a Max Martin production. He didn't do it for me because he was doing too much. He would have been better off talking about 50 songs or 30 songs. And then the way he put the songs in categories, I'm like, it just didn't make sense. It didn't gel. So, wasn't for me, but might be for you. So, if you want to try it, give it a whirl. If not, I don't think you'll be missing anything. Do you guys remember when I shared my February TBR that I was going into the spooky realm, reading my first horror anthology? I haven't even read a horror novel. Yeah, I read a horror novella. My husband did not think I could do it. He was like, okay, girl. Well, he didn't say it like that. He was looking at me with that look that he gives like, okay, we'll see about that. Well, guess what? I read Out There Screaming and I loved every single minute. I am so proud of myself. I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peele. So, you had me at Jordan Peele, you had me at Black authors, and a couple of these horror authors I was familiar with. And of course, Kayla from Books and Lala had me because this is her February Literally Dead book club selection. So I had so many reasons to give this a go, and I'm so glad that I did. I have to share with you my favorite quote from this book. I don't remember which short story it was, but out of the 19 short stories, I gave 9 of them 4.5, 5 stars. So I consider that a wonderful reading experience. So this quote really grabbed me and stuck with me. "But once you crack the seal on being a crazy person, people don't really make a distinction." So there were so many moments that I was spooked. I think I'm a psychological horror girly. I'm not into the gruesome gore stuff. But that psychological horror, oh my goodness, I was like, this is a vibe. And so for that reason, I feel like I learned 2 things. I learned that I can read spooky stuff. Yay me. I also learned that the horror genre is a deep and powerful way to explore the human experience. So many of these societal, racial issues, the way that the horror genre brought them to light was really powerful. So, yay, I did it, you guys. I read Out There Screaming and I didn't scream. And then I had my buddy read with my buddy. Oh my goodness, you guys. I love me some Olive from a book, Olive. And I love the fact that we both hail from Pittsburgh and get to spend a lot of time together in person. And this book was one that she lifted up on her channel. And I was like, oh girl. I started texting her after I watched the video and was like, we got to buddy read this one. And that we did. And the book is Dear Black Girls, How to Be True to You by Asia Wilson, two-time WNBA MVP. First of all, she radiates Black joy, Black resilience, Black strength, Black girl magic. Did I say Black? Because this woman is such a queen and I am here for it. I love the length and the format of this book because it really reads like a letter to Black girls. And when I say Black girls, some of the letters that she writes really can be letters that connect with younger Black women, older Black women. But the universal theme of being a Black girl and reading this book is very much present. I found that this book is perfect motivation for Black girls of all ages. It's so authentic, it's filled with joy, and it's filled with love. It's affirming, it's celebratory, and you know what I love the most is that Asia's voice was evident. She wrote this, and I love it when our celebrities or well-known folks, when their voices can be heard and felt in these books. Because, you know, sometimes they have ghostwriters and all the things, and we kind of lose that authenticity. Not here, my friends. So I have two favorite quotes. My first one being, every hard, scary, embarrassing, or downright awful part of my life gave me some kind of new superpower. I love that. So true. And then this is like a short one, but an important one. Adversity is like fertilizer for greatness. And I thought, that's an interesting way to talk about adversity. I couldn't agree more. This book would be the perfect gift for any and every Black girl in your life. I'm thinking students. I'm thinking a graduation gift. I'm thinking, a book club selection for young Black girls. This book should be in every young Black girl's hands. I loved it. Asia, you are a winner. So I felt like I was on a roll with Asia Wilson's book, and the next book that I read was a perfect transition, and it is titled African Town. This is a book written in verse. It's written by a duo, Irene Latham and Charles Waters. I absolutely fell in love with this book. I knew I would. I just didn't know when I would be emotionally ready to read it. And this ended up being the perfect time. Black History Month, also after reading a book that had lifted up my spirits, Asia Wilson's book, it was so fitting that I would read this book for such a time as this. So we are following the story of a group of West Africans who were illegally captured and enslaved and brought over to Mobile, Alabama, after it had become illegal to engage in the slave trade. The captain brought over about 120 something Africans on the Clotilda, this ship that just was such a horrific experience, as every experience we've read about enslavement and that journey is. And what I appreciate from these authors is that they bring these characters who were actually loosely based off of real people and gave them stories that made us deeply connected. It wasn't like reading facts. It was about getting to know each individual who was enslaved and their journey. So you have them coming over, and then you have them, like, this is about 1861-ish by the time they came to America. And as we know, they had about 5 more years they would have of being enslaved. So I was really blown away by how these newly enslaved people were very different and had challenges connecting with those Black people who had been born into slavery. It was like two completely different groups of people, and that's something that I've taken for granted when I've read about enslavement. And so they navigate this with such resilience. They being the Africans that were brought over on the Clotilda with such resilience. And I learned about myself that we as Black people are resilient in our collective strength. How they came together to ultimately be freed and build their own town in Alabama known as Africantown that still exists today, to be able to endure and persevere through all of that and come out on the other side and build a community is something that we should be celebrating and, quite frankly, learning about in schools. And this book was exquisitely written. It's an important part of our history. I am so grateful that I read Africantown. All right, I'm doing something a little different here, you guys. I have my next book that I am finishing up after I record this video. But due to this being a team effort for my husband and myself, I have to record this now, and I'm just pages away from finishing it. The book is my anticipated read by one of my favorite authors ever, Tia Williams, A Love Song for Ricki Wilde. I love Tia Williams, and I am loving this book. It is set in present day, leap year, in February, but we have a dual timeline because we also have some stories, some traveling back in time in Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance. We have Ricki Wilde, this young woman who, I love that her last name is Wilde because she is a wild child. She has grown up from wealth in Atlanta, Georgia, and she is the outcast. She's the oddball in her family of sisters. She is the one that hasn't quite found her way, who is messy and hasn't had this clear, clean-cut path for herself. She decides to become a florist and move to Harlem to do that, and is not getting support from her family, but she does encounter a found family that she creates for herself that is a beautiful way for her to have the support she needs to live out her dream of owning a flower shop. And in walks in Ezra, baby. Woo! And sparks fly. I'm not telling you any more about it because I really want to finish it and give you my final thoughts. So let me hop over to those final thoughts right now. Yay! So Gianna and I are doing a Target run, or Target as we like to call it. And I promised that I would give you my review, my thoughts on A Love Song for Ricki Wilde, Muji. And y'all, Tia Williams does it again. I was fully invested in this magical realism adventure that she took us on with Ricki and Ezra. I love the dual timelines. I love the Harlem Renaissance vibes, that era. And then to have the two lovebirds come together in this speculative, magical way was chef's kiss. It was so well done. I have so I would give this 5 stars. I'm hesitating and wanting to give it a 4.75 star review because of the way in which they ultimately, I don't want to give anything away. So let's put it this way. I gave this a 4.75 stars review. What's preventing me from adding that 1/4 star is the ending. I have very strong mixed feelings about the ending. Talk about bittersweet. I just don't know if I agree with how things played out. was predictable. So I shouldn't say that I was surprised, but I will say I wasn't 100% satisfied. So there you have it, friends. I absolutely love Tia Williams. She is an auto-buy author for your girl. This one was spectacular. Yay! I had a great reading month. Did you have a great reading month? I want to know all about it. You guys give me some great recommendations. It's your fault my TBR just never goes down, but is that a problem? I think not. So, let me know what you're up to. I hope you're doing well, and until next time, happy reading. Bye!